Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today I'm going to be going over one of the hidden vehicles that was hidden in update 1.37. This is the SB2M-103 MV-3. Now unfortunately I don't have both of the hidden SBs, this is the only one that I have, and this is going to kickstart a series which is going to look into the hidden vehicles of War Thunder, the ones that at least I own. So the SB2M-103 MV-3 is a rank 1 battle rating 2.3 Soviet bomber. Now what you will actually find when you look at it in the tree, it is in a list with the other SBs, but it isn't connected to the other ones, showing that, you know, you don't have to research it to go on to the next stage, which is kind of interesting. It's just left by its lonesome. Being a 2.3 BR aircraft, it has some stiff competition when it comes to even bombers for the Soviet tree. You've got the AR-2, you got the Yak-4, the Yak-2, which is a bit more of an attacker, but it's still good. You got the IL-2 1941, and then for the fighters, you know, the Lag-335, the MiG-315, which is wonderful, the Yak-7B, the MiG-334, which is also wonderful. There's a ton of stiff competition to take this thing over others. Let's have a look at the armor profile. On this, the only armor is a little bit of a backplate for the pilot. This means that all of your turrets are very much exposed to the elements, and of those turrets, there are 3 of them, as you can see. So you have a ball turret, 7.62mm Shikass. This can turn above your plane all the way around, and then you have a bottom one of the 7.62mm Shikass as well with another gunner, so it's not just the same guy. And as you can see, it's got this interesting belt fed, you know, where the ammunition is here. So instead of being close to the gun, it's actually quite far away. Then you have 2 7.62mm Shikasses in the front of it, meaning that going after other planes can be really, really fun to do in this machine. It is definitely not just a bomber, it's got a little bit of fight in it as well. The engines that it has are the Klimov M103A 12-cylinder inlines, 850 horsepower each for takeoff power, and then we have some self-sealing fuel tanks in the wings on top of some oil cooling systems, and the liquid cooling systems being around the front of the engine here. Another thing to note is, since this is the only little bit of armor, once your engines are hit, they're hit hard, and they tend to die quite quickly. There is no war emergency power on this aircraft, so take that into account if you have it. Modifications-wise, just because it's a hidden vehicle doesn't mean you have to mod it out. This doesn't get a premium status or anything like that. It has 2 sets of secondary weapon modifications, the DER-33 and the DER-19. What this does is it unlocks all of these secondary weapons you can see here. So you start off with the 600 Fab or Fab 100 kilo bombs, and then once you unlock those 2 modifications, it gives you all of these different ones. Now I personally like the 2 Fab 250s and the 2 Fab 500s. This is because you can drop them all and nuke a base. Sometimes if you get a lower BR than your BR, you can just drop 2 500s and a 1 250, and then you have a 1 250 spare. If you take the 3 500s, you actually screw yourself out of a little bit of explosive mass. This has the most explosive mass out of all of these here. You can see by the 250s being 120 and the 500s being 234.9. So if you're a stickler about it, this has around about, what is it, like 5 kilos more of an explosive mass. But the main thing is that you can drop the 2 250s independently of each other, where if you take this bomb load, you can only drop the 2 at once. The 2 500s that you see here, they drop at the same time in realistic, and then you only have 1 in the center bomb bay door here. So for me, I like the extra flexibility of having the extra 250 just in case I want to drop it on a separate target which isn't a base. The other bomb loads, you know, the 6 100s and the 2 250s, I suppose you could go for it if you wanted to try and take out some smaller enemies, such as medium tanks, which are stationary, or armored cars. Then you got the 1 500 and the 2 250s. Literally no reason to take this unless, you know, you want the flexibility of having the 500 in the fuselage, so you don't have to drop it together with another one, but I don't know why you'd want to do that unless you're trying to save speed. Then you have the 4 250s, of course, which is just a worse bomb load than the one that you should take, which is this one. Yes, it does slow down you the most, but because of this BR, the majority of the time you can get to the bases before you get caught by any fighters, and then you can get back to your airfield and then be able to get back up and all of that good stuff. Overall, it is quite a fun little bomber to use. It is classed as a light bomber. It might be one of the heaviest armed light bombers in the game, with 1,500 kilos worth of bombs at 2.3, which is kind of crazy. Anyway, let's get into some gameplay. The SB-2M series of aircraft has always been fun to play, and the MV-3 is no different. The reason why they're fun is because you have this bomber which has a pretty good bomb load, it's quite a low BR, and it's very flexible. And what I mean by this is it's quite maneuverable, meaning that you can toss it around a little bit, and it has a decent foray of guns on it. The 7.62 Shikasses, even though they're a small caliber, you should never count them out of a fight, and the reason for this is because of the fire rate. The fire rate of these machine guns is insane in-game, and with the two that you find on the front of it, it means that you can chase down enemy bombers and you can have a bit of fun with them. What I like doing with the SB-2M is taking, you know, the 1,500 kilo payload, hitting a base, and then going after bombers. Now, if the enemy team has no bombers, you dive down, create a kind of pseudo-attacker, supportive fighter, and help out your teammates. Because it seems like at this time, the Soviets at this tier are not exactly doing too well. I ran into a lot of Corsairs, I ran into a lot of Spitfires, into a lot of Hurricanes, and the early BF-109s, the E1s and the E3s, and the majority of the time the Soviet teams were kind of picked apart while they were trying to use I-16s and Yakovlevs, so it was kind of nice trying to help them out, trying to make sure that everybody was able to survive to fight another day. But one of the things that has happened to the SB series of aircraft over the years is flight model changes. Before, this thing used to handle very similarly to the old Beaufighter, where you could toss it around, you could outturn fighters, you could do ridiculous things with it. It seems like they've fixed the elevator, so you can't exactly do this straight out anymore, but what you still can do is with the rudder control, just push this thing to ridiculous lengths, push this thing hard to the left or hard to the right, and then use that to turn your plane. Now, when it comes to chasing down bombers, one of the things you do have to realize is you don't have any armor apart from behind the pilot. So their backwards or tail turrets are going to do a lot of damage to you, either to your pilots or to your engines. And these engines are definitely fragile. They are not some things that you want to rely on when it comes to the grand scheme of things. The engines themselves, once they get hit, they're either going to leak water, oil, or your fuel's going to go, something's going to go, and your engine's going to die pretty quickly. Now, when it comes to that, surviving on one engine, it can be done on this, but it definitely is not preferable. There are lots of aircraft out there which can survive for a long time on one engine. This definitely isn't one. And when we talk about the engines on this thing, they are powerful, but they don't have any WEP, so that should be considered. And to be honest, they don't really overheat either. They just kind of, if you set them at 100%, they're just going to kind of do their thing. Another nice little tidbit about this aircraft is even though it's quite a low BR for a bomber, it can go over 500 kilometers an hour, so you can actually outdive a lot of the fighters that you'll fight. Spitfires, at least the early ones, struggle above 500 kilometers an hour, and so do stuff like Hurricanes, so you can actually dive away from them, which is a really nice feeling, may I say, when you actually do so. but you do start getting into BRs which are unsafe, we'll say, for fragile bombers, which this thing is. You know, this thing has to rely on its speed and maneuverability, not exactly its tankiness. I suppose it can also rely on its defensive turrets, since they have pretty good coverage. The bold defensive turret you see on the top, it actually has coverage all the way around the top of the aircraft, and the one under it, it only has coverage behind it and below. But what is an issue for the SB with its coverage behind it, it has this horizontal line which sits around the thing, basically where the tail is. Like if you sit parallel to the horizontal of the tail, then the SB cannot shoot you. It cannot shoot you if you're on the side of the aircraft. It cannot shoot you if you are behind the aircraft. It cannot shoot you if you are on, you know, slightly below that or slightly above that. It has a ring that it can't fire at. Now, if you're in the front guns have insane flexibility, so you don't really want to deal with them in the front. What you want to do is you want to take this thing straight from behind, or if you want to do it from above, make sure you aim for that turret. The turret has no armor. It's very easy to take out that tail turret. Every time I've had a fighter on me, I have had that guy taken out, you know, every single time, and I feel very, very sorry for him. He's never survived a mission that I've been in. But it is a fun aircraft. If we compare it to something like an AR-2 or a DB-3B, yes, they're very similar, and you can maybe, you know, you can understand why this SB was taken out of the game, because it is incredibly similar to the other SBs. Does that mean it's not a bit of fun? No, of course it is. It's a lot of fun. These light bombers, which you can chuck about, are incredibly fun at lower tiers. Is it outshone by some of its competitors? Well, I mean, when you look at other nations, yeah, the Farman, the NC-223 are always going to be top dog in this respect, just because of their bomb loads. So when we see this light bomber, you've got to make another impact on top of, you know, being the bomber taking out a base. And I personally think that impact is in a supportive role, either going after the enemy's bombers or creating a 2-on-1 situation with another fighter to try and relieve the pressure so he can do the business while you are trying to survive. Overall, it's a fun time. If you have it, or if you have any of the SBs, I would say just spade them. It's not going to take you a long time. They're all rank 1 vehicles, and it's just a bit of fun. And it kicks you off into a wonderful line of Soviet bombers, which only get better and better until you get to the monster that is the Tu-4. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.